Good afternoon, viewers, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to take you on a journey deep into the heart of our galaxy, where strange and unexplained phenomena defy everything we thought we knew about the cosmos. At the center of our Milky Way lies a mystery so profound that it has captured the attention of scientists, astronomers, and theorists alike. We're talking about the massive positron fountain, a source of antimatter that's producing some of the most perplexing gamma radiation ever detected. This is the 511 keV gamma ray line, a signal so specific, so unusual, that it could hold the key to understanding some of the most fundamental questions about the universe itself. But here's where things get truly fascinating. This radiation is coming from the very core of our galaxy, right near a supermassive black hole known as Sagittarius A. And it's not just any radiation, it's radiation linked to a process that's been baffling scientists for decades: antimatter annihilation. You see, antimatter is a substance that exists in the universe, but it's not something we're accustomed to encountering. In fact, on Earth, we can only generate minuscule amounts of antimatter, typically for highly controlled experiments. But out there, in the galactic core, there's an astonishing amount of antimatter, enough to create gamma rays on a scale we've never imagined. Now, here's the twist that will make you look at this mystery in a whole new light. What if it's not all a natural phenomenon? What if, just maybe, an advanced extraterrestrial civilization has found a way to harness and control this antimatter, using it for power, propulsion, or even something more extraordinary? We know it sounds like something out of a science fiction novel, but stick with me here, because we're about to explore a very real possibility that could change everything we know about space, energy, and even alien life. In today's video, we're going to explore this galactic mystery from multiple angles. We'll start by breaking down the science of antimatter and how it's created in the heart of our galaxy. We'll also dive into the concept of gamma rays, explaining exactly how these elusive rays form and why their existence points to the presence of antimatter. But we're not just looking at what we know, we're also venturing into the realm of speculation. What if this antimatter fountain is the result of a civilization mining the very core of the galaxy for power? As we dig deeper into this cosmic puzzle, we'll also look at the newly discovered millisecond pulsar found near Sagittarius A, right at the center of this anomaly. Millisecond pulsars are incredibly rare, especially in the chaotic and dense environment around the black hole. But there it is, spinning at an incredible speed of 8.19 milliseconds per rotation. Could this pulsar be an artificial creation, a beacon left by an advanced alien civilization to guide their ships or mark their territory? Or is it a completely natural phenomenon we just don't yet understand? Now, I know, all of this might sound like a stretch, but let me assure you, this isn't just wild speculation. This is based on real observations and evidence gathered by some of the most advanced telescopes and space observatories. So, sit tight, because we're about to go on an interstellar journey to explore the possibilities of antimatter, alien civilizations, and the true nature of our galaxy's most enigmatic features. Before we get into the science, if you're ready to take this ride with us, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss the next chapter of this deep dive into the cosmos. Now that we've set the stage, let's dive into the core of the mystery, antimatter. It's one of the most fascinating and perplexing concepts in physics, and for good reason. In our universe, matter and antimatter should be equal in number. But somehow, the universe we live in is made almost entirely of matter, with very little antimatter to speak of. Yet, when antimatter does show up, it's incredibly powerful. When antimatter comes into contact with matter, the two annihilate each other in a burst of energy that is almost incomprehensible in scale. This is where things get interesting. In the center of our galaxy, astronomers have detected an enormous amount of gamma radiation at exactly 511 keV, which is the unmistakable signature of electron annihilation. These gamma rays are created when positrons, antimatter electrons, collide with regular electrons, annihilating each other and releasing a massive amount of energy. This gamma radiation, originating from the galactic center, has been detected consistently and is focused around Sagittarius A, the supermassive black hole that lies at the heart of our galaxy. This discovery is mind-boggling because it suggests that an enormous amount of antimatter is being created and annihilated in the core of our galaxy. But how much? Astronomers have calculated that roughly every 10 years, 25 times the mass of our moon is being created in the form of antimatter in this region. Let that sink in for a second. 25 times the mass of our moon in antimatter every 10 years. That's an astronomical amount of energy being generated in a short time. And it begs the question, where is all this antimatter coming from? To understand the scale of this energy, we need to take a step back and consider the famous equation we all know, E equals mc squared. This equation, formulated by Einstein, tells us that energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. The speed of light is roughly 300 million meters per second, so when you square that number, you get an incredibly large figure. This means that even small amounts of mass are actually carrying around massive amounts of energy. For example, if you take just 1 kilogram of matter and apply this equation, you're looking at energy in the order of megatons. In fact, if you were to take a single kilogram of antimatter and collide it with an equal mass of matter, the resulting explosion would release over 20 megatons of energy, far more than any conventional bomb, and enough to cause devastation on a massive scale. To put this into perspective, if a kilogram of antimatter collided with an object, it would create an explosion equivalent to over 1,000 times the destructive force of the Hiroshima atomic bomb. And when you scale this up to the antimatter being created in the center of our galaxy, you're looking at amounts of energy that are almost beyond comprehension. The total energy produced by all this antimatter over the span of a decade could be equivalent to over 20 million years' worth of the sun's total energy output. But what's even more staggering is that this amount of antimatter is being produced in the form of positrons, and it's happening on an ongoing basis. So, how is this even possible? What process is generating so much antimatter in the first place? Conventional theories point to things like radioactive decay or cosmic rays, but none of these really explain the sheer scale of antimatter being produced. We have a lot of unanswered questions, and it's this mystery that has left scientists puzzled for years. One possibility is that this antimatter is being generated through some kind of natural process, but another, more speculative and much more exciting possibility is that this antimatter is being produced artificially. What if an advanced extraterrestrial civilization has discovered a way to harness the power of the black hole at the center of the galaxy, using its gravity and extreme conditions to produce and harvest antimatter? It might sound far-fetched, but when you consider the sheer scale of the energy being generated and the complexity of the processes involved, it starts to seem like a plausible theory. Now, let's take a step back and think about why an alien civilization would need such vast quantities of antimatter. After all, antimatter is one of the most powerful sources of energy in the universe, and if a civilization could figure out how to control it, the possibilities would be endless. They could use it for propulsion, power generation, or even as a weapon. But this is where things get really interesting, because there's a hypothesis that suggests the core of our galaxy might not just be a natural hotspot for antimatter. It might be a strategic location for an advanced civilization looking to harness this energy for their own purposes. As we dive deeper into this mystery, let's focus on one of the most intriguing elements of this cosmic puzzle: the gamma-ray signature coming from the galactic center. Astronomers have been detecting a sharp, intense gamma-ray line at exactly 511 keV, an unmistakable signal of positron annihilation. Positrons, the antimatter counterparts to regular electrons, collide with their matter counterparts, releasing two gamma photons, each carrying 511 keV of energy. The fact that this gamma-ray line is so bright and so concentrated around Sagittarius A, our supermassive black hole, is highly significant. Now, why is this important? Well, it's not just the quantity of antimatter that's being created, it's the unique nature of its distribution and annihilation. Astronomers have calculated that roughly 10 to the 43rd power positrons are being created every second in this region, an unimaginable number equivalent to wiping out a mass of positrons equal to that of Jupiter every few thousand years. And while that may sound like a lot, it's just a drop in the cosmic ocean when you consider how diffused this antimatter is over the vast expanse of space. What's more fascinating is the presence of a 2 mega-electron volt gamma-ray continuum and high ionization in the central molecular zone regions of dense gas clouds, where there seems to be far more energetic input than stars, supernovae, or cosmic rays can explain. Conventional theories have been proposed to account for this. Things like radioactive decay from supernova remnants, or the presence of jets from low-mass X-ray binaries, binary star systems, where one star is a black hole. But none of these theories seem to completely explain the strange diffuse nature of the antimatter in this region. Some astronomers have even suggested that this could be the result of excited dark matter particles, though we have no concrete evidence that dark matter even exists. Others believe it could be an exotic physical phenomenon still beyond our understanding. However, the sheer abundance of antimatter in this area of space raises more questions than answers. Why is so much antimatter being produced? And what does this mean for our understanding of the universe? The most intriguing aspect of this mystery is that, in addition to the abundant antimatter, astronomers have also detected a new, unusual cosmic object, a millisecond pulsar spinning every 8.19 milliseconds. This pulsar was spotted near the galactic center by the ultra-sensitive Green Bank telescope. Millisecond pulsars are rare, and finding one near Sagittarius A is especially peculiar given the extreme gravitational and dynamic conditions around the black hole. The fact that this pulsar is located in this chaotic region raises the possibility that it might not be a natural formation at all. Why is this significant? Well, if confirmed, this pulsar could serve as a beacon for testing general relativity close-up, providing crucial data about how matter behaves in such intense environments. But this pulsar's unlikely presence in the galactic center also leads to the possibility that it might be an artificial construct. If an advanced civilization were mining antimatter in this region, they could have engineered the pulsar as a navigation aid for their interstellar fleet, or perhaps even as an experiment in relativity within their time-dilated reference frame. The presence of such an object right at the center of this antimatter-rich region doesn't seem entirely random, and it certainly invites speculation. At this point, we need to ask the big question: is there any evidence to suggest that the galactic center's antimatter fountain and the newly discovered pulsar could be the result of an artificial process? Could an advanced extraterrestrial civilization really be behind this? Let's explore this speculative but exciting idea. Imagine a civilization that has mastered the ability to manipulate time and space in ways that are completely beyond our comprehension. Now, we know that gravity near a black hole is incredibly intense, and one of the most fascinating effects of this extreme gravitational field is time dilation. The closer you get to a black hole, the slower time moves relative to the rest of the universe. In fact, a civilization situated near Sagittarius A could experience centuries of time, while the rest of the galaxy ages thousands or even millions of years. This could provide them with a huge strategic advantage, allowing them to expand their empire or perform intricate calculations in a very short amount of time from their perspective. But why would an advanced civilization want to live near such a dangerous place with intense radiation, magnetic fields, and hot plasma? Well, this extreme environment might actually be the perfect setting for harvesting antimatter. The black hole's powerful gravity and the surrounding conditions could make the production of antimatter more efficient, and the civilization could exploit this natural process for their own purposes. In this scenario, they would likely use highly advanced technology to direct high-energy photons, powerful lasers, or engineered magnetic fields to trigger positron pair creation in the surrounding space. Once these positrons are created, they could be harvested and used as an energy source for propulsion or even as a weapon. This is where the diffuse 511 kV gamma ray line comes in. It could be the residual energy from these antimatter reactors or propulsion exhausts leaking into space as a byproduct of their operations. In addition to the antimatter, there's the mysterious high ionization observed in the molecular clouds near the galactic center. This could be a sign of extra low energy particles leaking into the gas, or it could indicate that some form of artificial process is at play. If this theory holds, it suggests that the galactic center could be an active hub for interstellar mining, energy production, and potentially even warfare, all conducted by an advanced civilization that has harnessed the incredible power of antimatter. But why go to all this trouble? Why would an extraterrestrial civilization go through the effort of mining antimatter in such a hostile environment? The answer might lie in the unique properties of antimatter itself. When you compare antimatter to other potential energy sources, it's clear that antimatter offers unparalleled efficiency. A small amount of antimatter can release an enormous amount of energy, making it the perfect candidate for powering starships, weapons, and entire galactic empires. But there's another reason, one that may involve a much darker side to the story. So, what would an advanced civilization actually do with all this antimatter? The possibilities are nearly limitless, and one of the most intriguing ideas involves using antimatter as a power source for propulsion systems that could enable interstellar travel. But there's a big challenge here. Antimatter annihilates instantly upon contact with matter, which means it's incredibly difficult to store and contain. But what if an extraterrestrial civilization had figured out how to do this? Well, believe it or not, we humans are already experimenting with ways to contain antimatter in controlled environments. The key to managing antimatter is electromagnetic suspension using magnetic fields to prevent it from coming into contact with matter. The technology that's currently in use to do this is called the penning trap. It's essentially an electromagnetic bottle that can hold antimatter particles by forcing them to spiral around a magnetic field, preventing them from touching anything else. At facilities like CERN, scientists have been able to trap antimatter particles such as antiprotons and antihydrogen for short periods of time, up to hours in some cases. Now, imagine that on a much larger scale. Think of a galactic civilization harnessing the power of black holes and using the same principles to create massive antimatter containment systems far beyond anything we could currently conceive. These advanced civilizations could use these enormous orbital antimatter traps to collect positrons from the core of the galaxy, cool them down, and store billions or even trillions of antimatter particles. And the possibilities are astounding. With antimatter, you get 100% mass-to-energy conversion, something no other power source on Earth can compete with. The specific impulse produced by matter-antimatter annihilation is orders of magnitude greater than what we can achieve with chemical rockets or even nuclear propulsion systems. For example, a chemical rocket might give you a specific impulse of around 450 seconds, and nuclear propulsion might stretch that to 6,000 to 10,000 seconds, but with antimatter, the specific impulse could easily reach millions of seconds. What this means is that antimatter propulsion could propel a spacecraft to relativistic speeds close to the speed of light, allowing it to travel across vast distances in the galaxy in just a few years from the perspective of the travelers. One speculative design for an antimatter-based propulsion system is something called antimatter-initiated microfusion, or AIM star. The idea is to store tiny amounts of antimatter in an onboard penning trap, then inject fusion fuel like deuterium or helium-3, and use the antimatter to trigger fusion reactions. This process would create an enormous amount of energy which would be channeled into a magnetic nozzle to create thrust. This type of propulsion system could, in theory, send probes to relativistic speeds, getting them to other star systems in a fraction of the time it would take with current technology. Now, here's where the plot thickens. Could the signals we're detecting from the galactic core be the result of such a propulsion system in use? The gamma plasma exhaust generated by these kinds of antimatter reactors could be contributing to the 511 keV signal that we've been detecting. It's an incredibly efficient method of propulsion, but it also happens to leave behind a telltale trace in the form of gamma radiation, a signal we might be interpreting as an anomaly when in fact it's the residue of a highly advanced system in action. So, why go through all the trouble of mining antimatter in the galactic core? Why would an advanced civilization choose antimatter over other, more readily accessible energy sources? Well, here's a major consideration. Antimatter is incredibly efficient. Even though it's dangerous, difficult to store, and challenging to control, it's the best possible source of energy in terms of efficiency. When compared to tapping the power of a black hole directly, say, by building a Dyson sphere or extracting energy from the black hole's accretion disk, antimatter might actually be a more convenient and accessible energy source. We humans still rely on fossil fuels despite their many drawbacks because they're abundant and the infrastructure to extract and use them is already in place. It's the same concept with antimatter. If it's being naturally produced right in the center of the galaxy, why bother with the complexities of building a Dyson sphere around the black hole when you can simply harvest the antimatter that's already being created in abundance? It's efficient, it's available, and it's the perfect source of energy for a highly advanced civilization. But there's another, more speculative and perhaps more chilling reason why an alien civilization might choose antimatter, the dark forest hypothesis. If you are unfamiliar with the dark forest theory, it suggests that the universe is a dangerous place, and broadcasting your existence could attract the attention of hostile civilizations. In other words, the universe is like a dark forest, where every civilization is a hunter trying to stay hidden. The moment you reveal your location, you're vulnerable to attack. So, what better way to hide your presence and protect yourself from other civilizations than by using antimatter? Think of the 511 keV gamma-ray glow as a billboard in space, an unmistakable sign that this region of the galaxy is claimed. An advanced civilization controlling the antimatter reservoir at the galactic center could use it as a form of galactic deterrence. The message is clear. This is our territory. Stay away or face annihilation. Now, let's take this idea a step further. Imagine an advanced civilization building a weapon powered by antimatter. The amount of antimatter needed to create a planetary-scale destruction event, a civilization-ending explosion, similar to the one caused by the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs, would be incredibly small. Just 1,600 tons of antimatter could be enough to annihilate an entire planet. While that may sound like a lot, it's actually millions of times less mass than the asteroid that caused the extinction event. The advantage of using antimatter as a weapon is that it can be accelerated to relativistic speeds and reach its target in no time, whereas an asteroid would require an immense amount of energy to accelerate to similar speeds. This would give an advanced civilization the ability to destroy entire planets with just a tiny fraction of the antimatter they're harvesting. The diffuse gamma-ray signal in the galactic core could be a calculated display of their dominance, a beacon saying, "We are here and we are powerful." This pulsar we've detected? It could very well be an artificial navigation aid or a signal beacon marking the presence of a highly advanced civilization that controls the galaxy's richest antimatter reservoir. Of course, all of this is highly speculative, but as we continue to gather data and make new discoveries, we can't rule out the possibility that we're dealing with something much more complex than just natural astrophysics. Perhaps there's a civilization out there hiding in plain sight, harnessing the power of antimatter and shaping the very future of the galaxy. What do you think? Is this a natural phenomenon, or could we be witnessing the work of an advanced extraterrestrial civilization? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Comment below, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into the unknown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what we explore next. Until then, stay curious and stay angry about space.